Get the news on our shows and other happenings by following us on Twitter. Find us at VoiceAmericaTRN or twitter.com/VoiceAmericaTRN. The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit VoiceAmericaHealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit VoiceAmerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Have you ever thought about why people act the way they do? Why are some people more difficult to deal with, while others are always pleasant? Let's find out together. Welcome to Human Behavior. What a trip. Your host is Dr. Jonathan Brower. Our program combines expert guests with people just like you who have questions or comments. We'll have fun exploring human behavior. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jonathan Brower.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Jonathan Brower. My show is called Human Behavior, What a Trip. We're going to have a wonderful trip today with an interesting man who has written a wonderful book called The Perfect Meal in Search of the Lost Tastes of France. The author of the book is John Baxter. Welcome to the show, John Baxter.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Good. So I'll call you John, and you can call me Jonathan.
Well, please do, unless you'd prefer I call you Doctor.
No, I like you to call me Jonathan.
Jonathan it is.
And I'll call you John. So,
please.
Before we get to what you do as a chef and make great meals, you also have been a film critic for a certain number of years.
That's right, yes. That was what I started out as, actually.
Uh-huh.
No, actually, I started out as a science fiction writer, but for most of my working life, yes, I wrote about the cinema.
I see. And then how many years later did you get in touch with gourmet food?
I've always been an eater, of course, and my father was a pastry cook, so I grew up with food, but I didn't begin to write about food and about my life in Paris until I moved here, which is now 23 years ago.
I see. So roughly in 1980?
1989, in fact, I arrived here.
What, 1990?
Yeah, pretty well. 1989, the very end of 1989. In fact, I've written a book about my first Christmas in France called Immovable Feast, Paris Christmas, which is all about cooking Christmas dinner for my French family. So it's a date fixed in my mind,
okay.
Christmas 1989.
So you grew up as a child in Australia?
That's right.
And what part of Australia did you live in?
In Sydney.
I see. And I like to ask my guests, if we can take about 2 minutes or so, how was growing up for you where you lived?
I didn't much like Australia, to tell you the truth. I always was a bookish kind of boy. I didn't like sports.
Yes.
And so Australia was absolutely the wrong country for me. It's a very sporty nation. Yes. So I was very isolated as a young man, and was very happy to move away to live in Europe and then to live in the United States and finally in France.
Uh-huh. So I'm curious to know, when you were a young man, let's say in your late teens, early 20s in Australia, did you chug down a lot of beer?
No, I was never a beer drinker. Luckily, I began to get interested in drinking just about when Australian wine began to emerge, just after the first European vintners started up the Australian wine industry. So I was in at the very beginning of that, and it went very well with my cooking.
Yes. So when you moved to France, you were how old?
This is relative. Well, I was in my late 40s, actually. But before that, I'd lived away from Australia for many years. In fact, I moved here from Los Angeles. That's where I was living.
Really? I grew up in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. I grew up in Hollywood.
Well, lucky you. I'd lived in Westwood. I was very happy there. I really enjoyed myself.
Yes, I used to play in Westwood a lot because I'd go to the UCLA and do things on their playing fields.
Right. Well, that was one of the great things for me, of course, that I was living on Veteran, and I could walk up to the top of Veteran, walk onto the UCLA campus, and there was some extraordinary concerts and performances, and I had good friends there. So I was sort of, in some ways, sad to tear myself away, but I think that in Paris I found my my spiritual home.
So before we talk about you getting to Paris, how did you end up in Westwood? What brought you there?
I was married to an American girl, and we got divorced. But luckily, I got a green card, and I thought I would probably be happier away from Australia, living in Los Angeles, which had always been my dream as a film historian. Yeah. And so I went there with the idea of being a screenwriter, and I had some success in that, and began to write a lot about films. But also I became the Los Angeles correspondent of the magazine Gourmet Traveler, which meant that I got to eat a lot of interesting food, and it gave me an insight into the lifestyle of California.
Yes, so a friend of mine and I, we've written a couple of screenplays, but we haven't gotten them sold, probably never will. So you actually had a screenplay that you got sold and got...
Yes. We really a terrible science fiction movie called Time Guardian, but it had Carrie Fisher from Star Wars in it. It had Dean Stockwell. It had some success, mainly on television and so on, but it was I'm sorry?
Well, good for you. Did you ever get... did they ever play the reruns of the movie and then you get a few cents?
I suppose I don't know. Maybe I do. I don't think so. I'd have to ask my agent. But it's not that happy an experience to think back on. Writing screenplays is a very, as you can imagine, it's a very soul destroying experience if you're not one of the great. I'm sorry.
It's also very iffy. The chances of somebody purchasing a screenplay is a very low probability.
Yes, it's true, except, of course, a lot of the work you get is for screenplays that never get made, but you're paid all the same.
Yes. All right. So then you left Los Angeles, and then you went to France, or was there some other stop before France?
No, I came to France. I met a girlfriend, an old girlfriend of mine, and we decided that I would move to France to live with her, and that's where I've been ever since.
And you've been in Paris?
Paris, where I am now.
Yeah. So I got to ask you. So as soon as you literally walked on French soil, the ground, we'll say, did you have some wonderful experience in your body?
In one sense, I did, because my wife-to-be's apartment was directly over a restaurant. So I was brought into touch very quickly with French cuisine. I could watch people eating below our windows, and that encouraged me to begin cooking myself.
So you could watch them, and you also could smell the food.
Yes, you could. No, not in an unpleasant way.
Not exactly.
Because it was. Yes, I could. I was right. I was thrown into the very center of the food business in France.
Yes. Now, when you arrived in Paris, you didn't immediately know you were going to be a chef and make gourmet meals, right?
No. Well, I suppose I am a chef. I'm a chef by avocation. It's my hobby. I don't make money from it. I enjoy cooking and eating and writing about it. But no, that wasn't what I planned to do. In fact, what I began to do was write about cinema again. I wrote a biography of the Italian filmmaker Federico Fellini.
Yes, he's famous.
Yes, he was famous, and he was very kind. He agreed to meet with me and to cooperate on the book, and it was a big success and just came out before he died.
I see.
So after that, I did a succession of film books.
And then what did you end up doing after your fling with the cinema went away?
Oh, it didn't go away. I kept at it. I wrote biographies of Louis Buñuel, of George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Woody Allen, Stanley Kubrick, Robert De Niro, Joseph von Sternberg.
These were all autobiographies, right?
Biographies, yes.
Biographies. And you were the author. Well, that's great. And
that's right. Yeah.
Well, this was you made most of your income writing these books.
Yeah, exactly. And I cooked as a hobby.
Yeah. So when you were writing these books, I'm always interested about this. I've written a couple of books, but when you're writing your books, do you usually find it to be easy and fun, or do you find that you have these spots where it's kind of dead and you're getting nowhere? How would you describe that?
I don't have much trouble writing, touch wood. I enjoy it. I always have. I particularly enjoyed writing about cinema because I could meet these people and meet people who'd worked with them, and that's exciting. It's a kind of it's a sort of detective story, writing a biography of these people, because they all to some extent had secret lives, and I enjoyed digging into that. Yes.
And were there any particular people you would have liked to have written about that you have not yet written about?
No, I stopped writing about the cinema because I'd written about all the people that I found interesting. Once I'd done Robert De Niro, who is an immensely complicated and secret person, I didn't really think I was going to improve on that.
So after that, what did you do for income when you wrote your last biography?
Well, then I began to write about Paris and my life here.
And so when you're writing about Paris, is it everyday things, or are you writing about specific people in Paris? How does it work?
Well, I began just writing about my own experience as a stranger in Paris, somebody who didn't know anything, couldn't speak the language. And then I wrote about the way in which I found I could communicate through food, because the French love to eat.
Yes.
And I found that my family, by chance, I'd married into a family of intellectuals and artists, none of whom could cook.
I see.
And their Christmas dinners were absolutely dreadful. So for my second Christmas here, I volunteered to cook Christmas dinner for the family of 20 people. So I found myself facing this incredible task of having to satisfy 20 very demanding French people. And they were so happy that I continued cooking Christmas dinner for them for the next 10 years.
So when you would have these big parties, were you the only one, or did you have other people helping you?
I like to cook by myself, but I did have friends helping me. Marie-Dominique, my wife, was very helpful, but she's not a cook, but she's very efficient organizer as a documentary filmmaker. But I with a lot of preparation and help from very good butchers, very good suppliers of produce, I was able to, if I spent 3 or 4 days on it, I was able to do it all myself.
So the book you've recently finished, it's now out for people to buy. It's called The Perfect Meal: In Search of the Lost Taste of France.
Exactly.
So tell us how you came up with that title.
Well, it was odd. UNESCO, the United Nations Cultural Organization, declared the French cuisine an international treasure, like the Serengeti, National Park, or a Yellowstone, or something that has to be preserved for the good of mankind.
Yes.
And I thought it was ironic that the sort of cuisine that they were talking about really hardly exists any longer for most people, because restaurants simply don't cater for the sort of elaborate meals that are the basis of great French cooking. So I wanted to go out into the countryside, into the regions, and find whether these great dishes still existed. Yeah. And I was very fortunate. We traveled around France for a year and discovered in all sorts of strange corners that these dishes were still cooked, and that the ingredients still existed, and people were eating the dishes that I'd only read about and which I couldn't eat in Paris.
I see. So I have here, I know about bouillabaisse. That's seafood stew that only tastes right if you eat it by the Mediterranean. That's what you say.
That's right.
And then you say the secret is an ugly fish called the rascasse. Is that how you say it?
Rascasse, yeah.
Rascasse.
Yeah, it's odd. It was a stew made specifically of the fish that were left over at the end of the day when the fishermen had sold all the good-looking fish. There were these little, rather misshapen, odd-looking things and bits of seafood, bits of shellfish, which no one wanted. Yeah. And so the fishermen would just toss them into a large pot with some olive oil, garlic, some vegetables, and white wine, and stew it up, and that would be their lunch or their dinner. And bouillabaisse means just to cook slowly, basically.
Yeah, there's also a lot of very healthy food. I mean, you're getting a lot of protein with the different foods.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Well, the Mediterranean diet is extremely healthy because it doesn't use butter. It uses olive oil. Uses very little saturated fats, mostly based on vegetables and seafood. So, yes, extremely healthy.
Yes. So I've been to France once, and I didn't notice very many people who were obese, and a lot of people in France drink wine, and the amount of people who are alcoholics is very low. So there's something going on that's pretty good in France.
Yes, this is true. It's one of those great puzzles, but I think you've put your finger on it. It's the people do drink wine, but they don't drink it to excess. And people do like to eat, but they don't eat to excess. They don't eat a lot of hamburgers. They don't eat a lot of French fries, not a lot of bread, not a lot of sugar, very little sugar.
Yes. Speaking of French fries, did French fries begin in France or did they begin in the United States?
Oh, I think it's one of these things that probably sprang up all over the world at the same time, wherever the potato arrived, and the idea of frying it probably came to mind. Certainly French fries in France are very different to French fries in the United States, as you've probably found.
Yes. So the French fries in France are more like slices of potato.
Yes, much more. They're usually hand cut, and they're not cooked so much. They're not sort of thin and crunchy. They're more meaty, more potatoey.
Yes. And then for all the years you've been in Paris, did you do most of your transportation by walking, or did you take taxis or have a car? How'd you do that?
Well, no, I'm a walker. In fact, my last book before The Perfect Meal was called The Most Beautiful Walk in the World. And it's all about walking in Paris. And it was a considerable success in the United States. And in fact, I give walking tours around Paris frequently, 2 or 3 a week. And the people I take around are very often Californians who have read The Most Beautiful Walk in the World, and they want to follow in my footsteps. So I find, in fact, Americans, once they get here and you get them down onto the pavement, they just love to walk.
Yes. So are you fairly thin and lean and all that?
No, not at all. I'm overweight. That's why I walk. I think it's good for me. My doctor said it would be good if I got some exercise. Good. So I thought this was a good way of getting exercise and keeping it interesting.
So have you lost some weight while you've been walking?
I've put on some muscle weight. I haven't lost anything overall, but I'm in much better shape.
Oh, good. That's very good. Yes. So you also mentioned lampreys, Lampreys.
Yes,
the kind of
lampreys.
Giant worm tastes like sardines.
Well, it's odd. Yes, it's a dish. Lamprey was a great delicacy in the Middle Ages. In fact, one of the kings of England ate so much lamprey that he died of it. He died of a surfeit of lampreys. And I always wondered what was so great about the lamprey that would make a king eat too much. So I found a friend down in Bergerac, which is in the middle of France, who still knew how to cook the lamprey, and so she cooked it for me. It looks like an eel, but it's actually more like a fish. And as you say, the flesh, in fact, tastes a bit like sardine. It's cooked in a sauce made of its own blood, which is a little nasty, but it tastes fine, actually.
Yes, well, when I read something that says it's a giant worm that tastes like sardines, it seems to me it would be unappealing, but apparently people who get used to it like it. We're going to take a break for a commercial, okay?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so we'll come back in about a minute.
A fresh look at today's health. Voice America Health and Wellness.
Legal Shield. Total access. Everyone deserves legal protection. With Legal Shield, everyone can access it, no matter how traumatic or trivial. Check out players.buildinglastingsuccess.com and jjbrower.com. Call Jonathan at 805-535-5111.
DefeatAnxietyNow.com is geared to help people suffering with anxiety and depression. Intensive, short-term, dynamic psychotherapy helps many people get to the absolute core of their problems and resolve them. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Interested in investing in real estate, leveraging other people's money? Call Jonathan Brower, and he can give you some more information. 805-535-5111. That's 805-535-5111.
SportsPsychologySociology.com can help you improve your ability to excel and enjoy your athletic endeavors. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You're listening to Human Behavior, What a Trip, with Dr. Jonathan Brower. If you have a question or comment for the show this week, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's toll free, 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to jbrowerphd@yahoo.com. Now, back to Human Behavior, What a Trip.
Hi, everybody. This is Jonathan Brower. I'm back with my guest, John Baxter, who has written a wonderful book called The Perfect Meal, In Search of the Lost Taste of France. And, John, before we go on, how can people find out about how to get your book?
Well, on Amazon, of course, the place everyone looks for books these days.
Okay, Amazon.
It's easy to find. I have also a Facebook site and a web page, so I think I'm fairly easy to find. You just Google John Baxter books and you'll find me.
Would you like to give out your website?
Yes, it's easy. It's all one word, johnbaxterparis.com.
John Baxter
Paris, all one word.
Paris.com. That's nice and tidy. Okay, good. So people out there, you can find John Baxter on his website, johnbaxterparis.com. So, John, you also mentioned a book you wrote before the current one called The Most Beautiful Walking in the World.
That's right, The Most Beautiful Walk in the World. In fact, it's a phrase. I'm sorry?
It's called The Most Beautiful Walk in the World.
Exactly.
And then as the subtitle, Paris, or what do you say?
A Pedestrian in Paris, it's called, the subtitle.
In Paris. And people can also find that book too, right?
Oh, absolutely. All my books, well, not all 44 books I've written, but all the recent ones anyway.
Okay. So now when you just told me you've written 44 books, how quickly do you get through a book on the average? Like 8 months, 2 years? How does it work?
Yeah, well, it depends on the book. You know, you can imagine that writing a 30,000 word book about Paris is fairly easy compared to, say, writing a 150,000 word book about Robert De Niro. But yes, it balances out. It's about a book a year, about the same schedule as Woody Allen, in fact, with movies.
And do you ever have 2 or 3 books you're working on? Pretty much, you just keep rotating before you finish any one of them?
Oh, well, that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm working on one book. I've got another one coming out next April. I've just signed a contract for a third one, and I'm doing a Kindle single, as they're called, for Amazon. So, yeah, I'm pretty thoroughly occupied.
Your middle name should be Prolific.
It should be. I don't have a middle name. We were too poor.
Yes, well, I know people who don't have a middle name. Actually, my 2 adult children don't have a middle name, but you could if you wanted. John Prolific Baxter.
Well, in fact, when I was confirmed, I was asked to take a middle name because it's part of the Catholic ritual that you choose a saint's name, and I took Martin, and for a while I was known as John Martin Baxter, but it didn't stick. I think I like the simplicity of John Baxter. Yes.
So normally, when you're writing your books, are you enjoying the process most of the time?
All the time. Yes, I've never written a book I didn't enjoy.
Yeah, but what happens when you have to go back and reread everything and be sure you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's?
Oh, I don't mind the process. I think that's quite interesting because what one does, of course, is one corrects things, one sees things one didn't notice before, one improves on things. Yes. I was just going through a little collection of short fiction that I did and thinking, yes, I'll change that word, change that name, just tweaking it a bit.
Yes. So when you're doing your writing, do you do it 7 days a week, 6 days a week? And then how many hours a day?
Oh, all day, every day, not all day, but every day. And certainly, yes, I get up very early. I start work about 4:30 in the morning. By the time my wife gets up about 8 o'clock, I've kind of done the day's work in terms of new writing. So I spend the rest of the day doing research or doing walks, sometimes appearing at events, festivals, and so on. So it's a pretty good regime, actually.
Yes. And if you get up at 4:30, what time do you normally go to sleep?
I do midnight, 1 o'clock, something like that.
I see.
I don't sleep very much.
And then do you do the same schedule on Saturdays and Sundays, or do you?
Sure.
I see.
One thing I do on Sundays, which I enjoy, is to go to what are called brocantes, which you would call flea markets, because I collect rare books, and they're a great place to look.
I see. So it sounds to me like for you, your life is wonderful.
I think so. I have no complaints. I guess yours is pretty good as well, though.
Yes, but it's lovely to have an occupation, or more than one, that you really love to do and that gives you a lot of gratification.
Well, it's the most important thing in the world, don't you think? I think it was Scott Fitzgerald who said, if you have found your work, then you have found everything. I think that's the great recipe for enjoying life, is to be able to do something that you enjoy doing. So when you start work, you do so with enthusiasm.
Yes. So I have another question to ask you that has nothing to do with the writing. When you moved to France, you didn't know how to speak French, right?
Very little. I picked up a few phrases, but didn't really understand the language at all.
And how long did it take you, by your standards, to be good enough where you could understand and be understood?
Yeah, the two things are very different. In fact, as I'm sure you know, it's much easier to formulate a sentence and speak it than it is to understand what people are saying to you.
Yes.
Especially in France, where Paris, where the people speak in a very particular way, very fast, almost like a machine gun. I suppose I learned some of the basic grammar in the first few weeks because, after all, I was the cook for the two of us. And if you go to the market and you know that unless you can say, I want a pound of potatoes, you won't be eating dinner that night, it gives you an incentive to learn that phrase at least.
Yes. So when you were learning how to speak French, did you still have some kind of Australian accent?
Yes, I still do. And in fact, people say that our daughter, who speaks English and French equally well and speaks English with no accent at all, that the only accent she has is just a kind of slight tinge of an Australian accent, which she's learned from me.
How old's your daughter?
22.
And what does she do for a living?
She's studying journalism in London, as a matter of fact.
I see. Oh, that's nice. Is that the only child you have?
Yes, that's the only one. One is enough. If you have a child in your late 40s, it's very tiring, as I don't have to tell you, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, it's really wonderful that you enjoy your life and that it's very gratifying for you.
Well, yes, we were just talking about this at dinner tonight with some friends from London, and wondering why it is that we've got to where we are, and I think it's because we've gone with our instincts. Yes. Very often, that's the most important thing. We decided that we were all ready to pull up stakes and move somewhere where we thought our lives would be better, and I think that's is in some ways a secret of life, of successful life, at least in the sort of things we do in the arts and in culture, that you have to be able to move, to go where the possibilities are. It's very important, that mobility.
Yes. So your wife in France, is that where you met her, or did you meet her in Australia?
No, in fact, I met her in Virginia. I was teaching at a college in Virginia, and she was then a student. But it was many years later that we got together. But that's where we first met, in Roanoke, Virginia. I
see. And so, when did you rediscover her, in France or elsewhere?
No, it was in Los Angeles, and it was quite bizarre. I was hypnotized for a project, and I'd never been hypnotized before. And in the course of the hypnosis, I had a sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, an insight that this woman was very important to me, even though I hadn't seen her for 7 years. So I rang her up and asked her to come and visit me, and she came from Paris to Los Angeles, and 3 weeks later I sold up everything I owned and moved with her to Paris.
That's a beautiful love story.
It is, and it's been very successful, I'm happy to say.
And what does she do for an occupation?
She makes documentary films. She's a documentary filmmaker for television.
And does she work mainly in France, or does she go all over the world? What does she do?
Well, yes, she makes films mostly for French television, but she was just in Rome last week, making 2 documentaries there. Now on next Friday she goes off to the south of France. She's filmed in Australia, in the Pacific, in California, many countries of the world.
So when she goes on these documentaries to film, roughly on the average, how long is she away from you?
It varies. It can be, when she was in Australia, it was 2 months, I think. But mostly, she just, within Europe, she's only away for a week, or 10 days. Sometimes I even go with her, actually.
Oh, but you go with her sometimes, but not all the time.
Oh, well, there's some places I'd just as soon not go to. We went to Berlin recently to make a movie in which I actually appear, but on this last trip to Rome, I was too busy, so she just went with her crew.
I see. So probably what I'm getting at is, when she's away from you, how is it for you? Do you miss her?
Yes, of course, but we both have our work and we keep in touch. We're I think we're a very successful couple in that we each of us have our own work and we enjoy doing it and we enjoy being together that much more because we're not together all the time. It's not as though one of us was forced to live a lifestyle that he or she didn't enjoy. Our lives are complementary.
Yes. So if you didn't have the experience of being hypnotized, you may never have had her as a wife.
No, interesting, isn't it?
Yes. What prompted you to want to be hypnotized?
It's odd. I had a friend who was interested in alternative religions.
I see.
And she encouraged me. In fact, the two of us did it together. We went around checking out various sorts of creeds and belief systems around Los Angeles, of which, as you know, there's no shortage.
Oh, yes, exactly.
The man who did the hypnosis, I've often wondered what became of him. In fact,
do you remember his name?
Joe. What? Jewish name? I can't remember offhand. Maybe I'll think of it. He lived out in Commerce, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. He worked in one of the mental hospitals there. He used hypnosis as in his work, but he was pursuing a project where he hoped to find people whose soul had transmigrated from body to body, and that they might have known Christ in an earlier life.
Yeah.
And I didn't particularly believe in this thought or this idea, but I was happy to help him out and agree to be hypnotized in case I was an example of somebody whose soul had transmigrated. But it seemed that I wasn't. Apparently.
So one detail I'm not clear on: your wife, did she grow up in France or did she grow up elsewhere?
No, she's Parisian, born and bred in Paris.
I see. So that having her around to help you with the language was nice too. You probably learned quicker having her around so much.
Yes, she didn't really help me with the language. The French don't do that. French are very protective of their language. They don't really like to teach people. What they do is they correct you, which is very frustrating.
Yeah.
And she certainly does that and did that. So it's one way. I suppose one can say that was one way of helping me learn. Yes.
Yeah. So when you have your dreams that you remember, are any of them in French?
No, I don't dream. In fact, it's one of the odd things about me. I sleep very, very deeply and dreamlessly.
Well, most likely you do dream, but you're not aware of them.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. But
I know.
It's like the tree that falls in the forest, isn't it? If you don't hear it, can you really say that it exists?
Yeah, exactly, yes. So getting back to your cuisines for a while, I'm sure I'm not going to say this with the right pronunciation, but confiture viex garçon.
Confiture
right?
de vieux garçon. Yes, confiture, it means basically old man's preserves. It's I think probably it exists in the United States, probably out in Vermont or somewhere like that. They do this. Basically, the idea is that you take a large sort of crock, big some large container, and when the strawberries are nice and ripe, you take a sort of quart of strawberries and you put them in the bottom of the crock, and you pour in brandy or vodka or some kind of alcohol.
Yeah.
And then with each new fruit, you put that in and you pour in some more alcohol until it's topped up to the very top. Then you leave it until the winter, and it turns out what you've got is a very alcoholic kind of preserves, which I have to say is delicious on ice cream or even just for itself.
So if you eat too much of it, you'd get drunk?
Yes, you do.
I see. So when you eat this ice cream covered with this brandy or whatever it is, is it a super, super delicious treat?
It's not bad, actually. It depends how well it's like any dish.
It's not bad is different than was it super delicious?
No, okay. My point was that if it's done well, it's delicious, and if it's done badly, even then it's not too bad. But if you really need to have somebody, it's like anything, like any dish. You know, some people are terrible cooks, and some people are good. And even with a dish like this, it needs a certain finesse. You need to think about the right fruits to go in, and you need to think about the best quality of alcohol as well, and also you need to eat it with a little discrimination, because too much of it and the alcohol takes over.
Yes, and then you have the ox.
Oh yes,
tell me about the ox.
That was remarkable. I'd always wanted to attend the roasting of an entire ox, because to me that was something. It came out of, Roman times. It came out of the Bible. The idea of roasting a whole animal as a feast. But of course, it's not something that people do very often. But we found a place where they still do it, and my wife and I went up there, and we watched the 1,000-pound ox being roasted, and then we went into a tent with 500 other people, and we ate the whole ox, and I have to say it was delicious.
Okay, so how many hours or days or weeks would it take for an ox to get roasted?
Well, not that long, actually, because what they do is they roast it for about 8 or 10 hours whole. Then they take it away. They cut off the outer parts, which are already cooked. And then they take the less well-cooked and raw inner parts, and these they cook as sort of as a barbecue. Barbecue in the European sense of the word, in that they grill them. They grill them on an open fire.
I see.
And so we ate a combination of the slow-cooked meat from the exterior and the more quickly cooked meat from inside. I have to say they were both wonderfully tender.
I see. Now, is this kind of feast very infrequent?
Not really, no. It used to be more so, but as you can imagine, it needs to be done for an entire village. You need 500 people at least to eat the animal, so that's not always easy to find.
And what age animal do they use to roast?
I'm not sure. Probably a year or two. It's a young animal, tender, very tender.
And then for the ox that are lucky who don't get roasted, what do they do in Paris and in France?
Oh, well, I suppose they end up being butchered and sold in butcher shops. The difference with the ox that we had roasted was that it was roasted whole, but I suppose otherwise it would have been cut up and would have turned up in your butcher shop as sirloin and rib roast.
I see. So in France, there's probably a lot of different kinds of animals that get cooked, roasted or otherwise, that aren't in the United States. Is that correct?
I don't know. I suppose It's more the parts of the animal. I think everywhere we all eat beef and lamb and chicken and pork and so on. But the thing is that the French also like those parts of the animals, which I think Americans might not necessarily like. For instance, with the pig, the nose, the snout is pickled and served as a delicacy, and there's a particular sort of sausage called andouillette, which uses all the parts of the animal, including some unexpected ones. It's particularly regarded as a delicacy if you use the asshole of the pig in the sausage as well.
Did you say asshole?
That's what I said. Yes, okay. The trou de cool, as they call it here.
So
if you put that in, that's considered a great delicacy.
All the microorganisms that might be bad get kicked out of it.
I'm sorry?
Well, when you mentioned the pig's ass,
yes.
If that part of the body is going to be eaten, hopefully it would be well cooked so that the human being ingesting this would not get sick.
Oh, absolutely. But there, with sausage, of course, sausage is always, it's usually salted and minced and cooked very heavily. After all, most sausages in France are made up of partly the intestines of the animal anyway. That's quite common.
Yes.
The French love that sort of thing, tripe, kidneys, liver, sweetbreads, almost anything, in fact.
Yes. So when you've eaten pig nose, did that taste good?
Well, it tastes like pig. It tastes like pork. It's a bit gelatinous. See, what they do is they cook it and then they serve it with a very tart, vinegary dressing. It's called museau here.
I see.
And it's a starter, a sort of what would you call it? A kind of appetizer, you would say. It's quite nice.
Yes. So. When you normally cook a meal for you and your wife at home, how long does it take from the time you start preparing the food until you're ready to start eating the food?
It depends what it is, of course, but I mean, take what I cooked tonight. I cooked a rolled shoulder of lamb with a mash of sweet potatoes with cream cheese and some boiled potatoes and some carrots cooked with caraway seed. That took about an hour and a half, I suppose. And
so much of that time, it's in the oven, right, cooking?
Yes, well, you put the joint in the oven and then you begin the vegetables. One of the arts of cooking is to bring everything to the table at the same time. So everything is ready just at the moment when people want to sit down.
And apparently at this point you're very good at doing that, I imagine.
Yes, I am. I can say that without false modesty. I've been doing it long enough to, I have a sort of inbuilt timer, I think.
Yes. So do you ever end up eating food you don't particularly like?
No. I sometimes have to do it at the homes of other people when I'm served something I don't like. I don't like to leave it on the plate, but I might sort of nibble at it and push it around a bit. But
exactly.
We all do that, don't we?
Yes. And then let's say hypothetically you're sick for some reason. Then will your wife do the cooking if she's at home?
No, my wife could burn water. No, I would probably look for something in the freezer.
So let's say you were very sick and nauseous and you just couldn't be eating. What would she eat for the evening? Just some crackers.
Well, she'd look in the freezer.
Okay, thank you. So what would she do if you weren't available to cook? She would just eat some crackers and cheese?
Well, probably, yes. Cheese, especially. She loves cheese. The French in general love cheese.
Yes. Well, that's nice. Well, we're going to have about maybe 30 more seconds. Anything you would like to say?
I would like people to go out and buy my book, The Perfect Meal in Search of the Lost Tastes of France by HarperCollins, available at all good bookstores and on Amazon.
Okay, and they also can check out John Baxter and find all your books.
That's right, johnbaxterparis.com. All the details are there.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been an absolute pleasure having you as my guest. I really enjoyed you a lot. And if you're ever coming to Southern California, let me know.
I certainly will, Jonathan. It's been a great pleasure talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for listening today. Tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time for Human Behavior, What a Trip, with Dr. Jonathan Brower on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. Have fun experiencing your human behavior.
SportsPsychologySociology.com can help you improve your ability to excel and enjoy your athletic endeavors. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Legal Shield, total access. Everyone deserves legal protection. With Legal Shield, everyone can access it, no matter how traumatic or trivial. Check out players.buildinglastingsuccess.com and jjbrower.com. Call Jonathan at 805-535-5111.
DefeatAnxietyNow.com is geared to help people suffering with anxiety and depression. Intensive, short-term, dynamic psychotherapy helps many people get to the absolute core of their problems and resolve them. Call Dr. Jonathan Brower at 818-707-4557.
Interested in investing in real estate, leveraging other people's money? Call Jonathan Brower, and he can give you some more information. 805-535-5111. That's 805-535-5111.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit Voice